Not Normal, a story about deep infiltrating endometriosis by Allison. My periods were always painful starting at the age of 12. I asked doctors and friends about what seemed and felt like dying with each cycle, but my periods were really light and people who menstruated all told me painful periods are normal. Painful periods are not normal. My health is complicated. As a teenager, I discovered toxic levels of a pesticide known as dieldrin in my childhood home in the well water. I thought this could explain the unexplainable period pains. I thought it was my fault for not trying hard enough, or missing yoga, or eating sugar, or staying up too late, or being too stressed. What did I do this time to cause so much pain before, during, and after my period? I always tried to work twice as hard, but I struggled to keep up, to wear pants, to succeed in school, with painful sex, simple movements, and unpredictable symptoms. I was physically and emotionally sensitive to everything. I would not listen to myself. I knew my periods were weird, but dozens of doctors cited stress and said I was overreacting. They prescribed birth control that set my symptoms on fire. As time passed, my daily symptoms waxed and waned. One day, I had to take the morning after pill, and shortly after that, a doctor forced me into receiving a shot of birth control. My health, especially my digestion, spiraled out of control. Coworkers accused me of having an eating disorder. I lost 2 jobs when I asked for accommodations for my stabbing bladder and painfully twisting intestines. I got a new job, but started fainting in my office or losing control of my bladder as I tried to find parking or make the long walk to the bathroom. My butt felt like it was covered in shards of glass, dripping in acid. My heart was unsteady. I could not breathe. Every joint in my body felt like it was snapping. I didn't have the words to say, "My periods are killing me." I had a colonoscopy that found something that seemed like maybe Crohn's disease, and I started taking steroids. Eventually, I was misdiagnosed with Crohn's disease when an MRI showed thickened bowel walls and also a very small ovarian cyst. I started taking Entyvio infusions and more steroids. With each infusion, I insisted, something is wrong. My periods are getting much worse. This is not right. I went to a new gynecologist who refused to help me unless I considered taking birth control for a 5th time. She sent me on a wild goose chase for breast cancer and wrote in my medical notes, "Patient is anxiously convinced she has another disease," and recommended a psych evaluation. I had already been in behavioral therapy for about a decade, partly due to the trauma and gaslighting of living with a disease that had no known name. After about a year of invasive testing, the doctors finally said I probably did not have Crohn's disease and cast me out of their clinic. I started with a new gastrointestinal specialist who diagnosed me with inflammatory bowel syndrome and dyssynergia, when muscles in your pelvic floor become uncoordinated. She prescribed pelvic physical therapy and also sent me on a marathon to see every type of specialist with more invasive testing, including the inflation of a water balloon in my rectum as I screamed for mercy. There's something in there. Please stop. My blood pressure was unstable. I had shivers, night sweats, constant bowel and bladder problems, fainted every night, stabbing punching pain, extreme fatigue, headaches, and I could not eat solid foods or walk or bend or leave the house day after day. Honestly, I prayed for the relief of death while my family said it was just a convenient excuse to not work. None of the doctors or their tests could explain so many different symptoms, but this is where the story gets good. That's when I got a phone call that changed my life. there was an opening on the months-long waitlist to see a pelvic physical therapist if I could make it to the hospital in an hour for an evaluation. The evaluation took about 2 hours. I didn't realize I had been disassociating from the pain in my pelvis for years, but the exam brought everything to light. I had been asking doctors about my periods since my first cycle. The therapist asked me how I would describe my periods. I said excruciating. She asked me if I had heard of endometriosis. I had not. Endometriosis is a disease that affects at least 1 in 10 women. It has also been found in people assigned female at birth or before puberty or after menopause or in unborn fetuses. It took 18 years of cascading pain for me to find out it had a name. On average, it takes nearly a decade to be diagnosed. Patients are often passed around between specialists, or often, especially in BIPOC people, patients' symptoms are ignored by health professionals. Endometriosis is a systemic inflammatory disease characterized by the presence of lesions located outside of the uterus. These lesions are different structurally and behave differently from the lining of the uterus known as the endometrium. The lesions can cause adhesions, fibrosis, and join together or destroy organs. Endometriosis develops its own nerves and blood supply. It produces inflammation and creates its own estrogen, and can be resistant to progesterone. The disease can be found anywhere in the body. It can be superficial or deep infiltrating and comes in all types of sizes and colors. It is staged between 1 and 4. However, the severity and the vast array of possible symptoms don't always correlate with disease stage or location. It can, and often does, cause symptoms throughout the month, not just when menstruating. It is mentioned in the oldest texts with inhumane treatments, and 100 years ago, it was still believed to be a wandering womb or simply hysteria.